Hello and welcome everyone to another installment of Getting to Know the Leaders, leading Homeland Security in the federal government. My name is Christina Tanasichuk. I'm the executive editor of Homeland Security Today and the CEO of the Government Technology and Services Coalition. And we're very excited to talk about some global initiatives undertaken by U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Today, we're talking with Vincent Annunziato, who's the Director of Business Transformation and Innovation Division at CBP at the Department of Homeland Security. Welcome.
Thank you, Christina. It's great to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you. You posted about a very exciting project that CBP is doing internationally, and it's all about helping us communicate faster and better, having interoperability, and having some global standards around that. Can you talk to us a little bit more about the project and why CBP thinks this is important?
Absolutely. I want to kind of use some anecdotal pieces because I find that when we talk about technology, you get in about 2 or 3 minutes and people's eyes kind of gloss over. So we're using a combination of what's called decentralized identifiers and verifiable credentials. And it's an exciting way of capturing data in a way that we never have before. So a decentralized identifier is it's a number, a unique number that can be used so that, for instance, if you and I were on a network together, you might be able to recognize me as Vinny Annunziato on network A. And then if I jump over to network C and you follow me there, you can still recognize me. But what's interesting about it is that it has what's called a public-private pairing. So although you see the public part of me, you can't steal my persona because I have a very secure encrypted key in the background that blocks that from happening. So already you start to see there's a little bit of security attached to what we're doing. And then we have what's called the verifiable credential. And these are kind of it's actually the way in which data is passed is through a verifiable credential. But the way to describe that would be, let's say that I'm out on the road driving, and let's say you're a police officer and I'm speeding, and you pull me over, right? And you look at you're gonna ask me for some form of identification. Now, obviously, I'm not just gonna give you an ID number like I just described. I'm gonna have to show you my driver's license, and you're gonna look through that driver's license. You're gonna notice all those attributes, and you're going to say to yourself, this is the closest thing I've ever seen to Superman. I'm kidding, of course, right? But you go through the attributes, right? And you see my height, my weight, my brown eyes, the whole thing, and you see the picture, and you have a pretty good understanding that I am the guy in that picture, right? But what are you missing, Christina? You're missing one thing, and that is that license could be fraudulent. So what you have to do is you have to go back to the police car, and then you'll run it, and you'll find that the DMV actually legitimizes me and says that I am who I am. So now you grow in confidence that I am that person, right? And this is what we're starting to do, and we can take that to a corporate level. So let's say a company comes in and they're able to have let's say they incorporated in the old days, they used to go out to what's the name of they would go out to Cyprus, let's say, and they would incorporate, and they would they would have a 20-year-old name, and now they have banking that just started yesterday. So when you start to compare those things, we start to be able to weed out the difference between legitimate companies and companies that aren't legitimate. And that's really what the goal is now, is to start getting this data in that we're not normally used to getting. There's a really good proponent for all of this. I don't know how much research you did, but we started off looking mainly at blockchain in the very beginning. And there was a lot of hype around it, so much so that you would have thought world peace and world hunger were completely eradicated. But the government had to kind of pivot away because we realized if we were to pick one technology and enforce it on everybody, that we could literally lock companies into a lot of expenditure. By going the interoperability route, it's really opened the doors to us future-proofing the system and allowing us to allow companies and other governments also that join us to have technology choice. So it's really doing a lot of wonderful things for the supply chain and all the actors that are a part of it.
So that is all part of CBP's strategy for global interoperability, to be able to have companies plug in different technologies so you can still be interoperable, but there's not so much focus on one technology.
Yes, and not allowing software companies to corner the market. And then what do you do if they take over and then there's the next bright, shiny object that's there that somebody wants to invest into? They could be locked in. You have to have, you're not only building systems, you also have to have exit plans. And sometimes if you go all in on something, it can take years and years and years to get out of it. And we've experienced that even on the government side. So we're very sensitive to it.
Absolutely. Well, you're seeing technological advancement at a pace that's a little bit insane. So you really have to remain agile enough to accept the next big thing. And that next big thing's coming tomorrow. So I don't envy you with this job.
Well, I love what I'm doing. So
Oh, good.
this is what's allowing us to keep pace with the technology. And you know, the standards themselves, we're looking at this at a global level, right? It's not just producing something for US customs purpose only. We're looking at, being able to indoctrinate other countries with these standards, so that you have one communications layer that could be global across, multiple countries, right? And I think it's just phenomenal to look at, because I worked on the first ACE versus what we're doing now. And the first ACE, we were limited by having to take something off of a mainframe and putting into modernized technology. But this is a business case first move into modernization. And it's really improving the business processes, which is what you really need to do in order to modernize, truly modernize in this day and age.
And ACE is the Automated Commercial Environment Program, correct?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. Thank
excellent,
you.
excellent. And you were a SME subject matter expert for that program, and it's in a second phase.
Yeah, I was actually the director in charge of the cargo release and the partner government agency single window.
Excellent.
So I'm taking all of that experience and I get another bite at the apple. So we're kind of redoing that now and we're making it much more efficient. In fact, I'm hoping, this is Vinny Annunziato speaking. I'm not speaking on behalf of the agency, but I believe that we may be able to reduce duplicative data as much as 30 to 40% by doing some of the moves that we're making right now with these technology upgrades.
That's amazing. That's going to position you very well for the future. The data is king now, right?
Absolutely.
So you were talking about quite an extensive project, global interoperability standards, getting everyone in line for that. How do you even start to achieve that?
Not easy at all. You work at a number of different levels really to bring this forward. Now, I do want to mention that DHS Science and Technology, the directorate, I've been working closely with them for many years. In fact, they started down the standards path about 4 to 5 years before we even started on it. But what it's produced now is that we have 2 international working groups with the W3C. And I'm not sure if you know who the W3C is, but it's the World Wide Web Consortium that actually is responsible for the internet. So we have a couple of working groups there because we sponsored this move. And again, I want to reiterate, these standards are something that are applicable to many different forms of technology, even down to the mobile level, right? So that's the first aspect of it. When you start to get into the business part of it, it really starts to, enable you to do things that we've never done before. So we're reaching out to the Border Five, for instance, which is 5 countries that have mutual recognition agreements with each other. So that would be the U.S., Canada, UK, New Zealand, and Australia. I got them all this time. I usually forget somebody. But we got 5 countries starting to work on this. I'm working very closely with IDB Bank, for instance. They have really developed inroads into the South American and Latin American countries. So we've got a lot of interest there as well. And we're starting to uh, bring the global, the agency level, and then I'm working with several partner government agencies right now. Food and Drug Administration, EPA is on board. We just got them on board. We're working with APHIS and AMS. All of them are relating to certain products that we're doing, putting out, and then being able to venture forward with us to see what is it like to get this kind of data. It's more discrete. We're getting it in near real time. We're getting traditional as well as non-traditional actors. So a lot of import agencies right now are playing in the sandbox with us.
So for the layperson watching this interview, tell us a little bit about why these interoperability standards are so important.
Well, gosh, there's so many reasons. Well, one is I just alluded to them. Obviously, we were talking to the COAC, which is the Advisory Operational Commercial Operational Advisory Group Committee, and that's all the different trade members that come together. And we discovered that really the first third of the supply chain we're kind of blind to, right? And most of the information that we're fishing for to know whether or not a company or a product is legitimate is in that first third. So it makes our jobs very difficult. So when we did that, we started looking at, again, these credentials, these DIDs, putting them together, and we started realizing we can make what's called a digital twin, which is a digital representation of the physical world. And that gets us to non-traditional as well as traditional actors. So anybody who's supplying data is now supplying that data in near real time to both the government and the private sector side. What's interesting is not only does the government benefit, but also the private sector. And then they're able to determine origin more easily. We need that for duties and taxes and to make sure that certain products are coming from the right countries, right? And then we're able to build this transparent supply chain so that you can see from beginning to end who's taking place. It answers the 3 questions of the digital twin: who's in control, what is it, and where is it geographically located? And in this day and age, we can do that. In fact, Christina, I would even say, with a little bit of hubris, that if you would have let us loose and we would have build a system that could track a product from manufacturing in, we would even know to the level of if they made an exact replica in the back room, before it even shipped, we would know whether or not it was a black market good. I think the technology is there. We just got to build the baseline to get there. So all of this is very, very powerful. The last piece that I want to throw in that I think that your patrons would appreciate is the difference between a first-party attestation and a third-party attestation. In the example that I gave you earlier, where you pulled me over for speeding, which thankfully I haven't gotten a ticket in a very long time, but the fact that I attested to myself versus having that third-party attestation, when you start to build more and more and more in this at a global level, so examinations that are taking place overseas, countries coming in and saying that they are, that this company is worthwhile for certain benefits. When maybe somebody has been doing some auditing and they certify something, or maybe your product has met a certain standard. These things are not easy for folks that are conducting nefarious activity to get through. So really what you start to do is you start to build a coalition of legitimacy. And then operationally, what do you focus on? Well, if you know the goods are pretty legitimate, you're going to spend a lot less time there and more focused in on the nuanced areas where you're having some trouble. So across the board, And you start uniting that with all of the folks on the private sector who are looking to do the right thing and joining forces with us. I think we can have a very safe um, and secure system, and also be able to facilitate at a higher level that we're doing now, especially with the partner government agencies in a way that we haven't done before.
That's incredible work, and you're talking supply chain and security during National Critical Infrastructure Month. So it's great timing. And you not only are working on this interoperability project, but you're also protecting the supply chains. Can you tell us about the recent pipeline, oil, and steel supply chain test that you all did and your priorities for that?
Absolutely. Coming off of August was really a high point for my team. We had taken uh, a couple of years worth of work and put it together on the pipeline piece. And I will tell you that right now, the pipeline piece is very paper driven. And we got some very large companies that participated. And a lot of times what happens in the pipeline business is the documents will even come in after the fact. So it's very hard for customs to do their job properly. Well, now they're getting the data before we even get what's called an entry or a bill of lading. We're able to start assessing earlier. The data is more discrete. And here's a kicker for you. No matter how many times the oil sells on the open exchange, we can still track it back to origin. So it's really it's going to save some trees. They have merchandise processing fees that we will be able to make sure that they're getting properly now. On top of that, the the customs folks are able to do their job a lot more simply than they have before. They have a better tool. Um, on the steel piece, we were so that was all with the northern border. With the steel piece, we've been down on the southern border, and we started from melt and pour. So it's you don't think much about steel, but when you think about what happened in the news the past couple of months, we had a bridge fall, we had two apartment buildings fall. You really need to know credibly, the grade of the type of steel that you're getting. You want to make sure that you're not buying something that is made from some third, party country that's trying to undercut everybody. So in Mexico, the steel companies are very interested in making sure that they are legitimately moving steel from Mexico into the U.S. and not some country coming in and undercutting them. So we were able to track all of that. The other thing that we did was we've been taking baby steps, which is the way you need to go into development. You don't just jump right in, right? So what we wanted to do is see what is it like to integrate the legacy data that we already have with this new data, and how does that mix together, and how do we make that available for the operators? And it was just great. I mean, I would say, I've been doing this many years. Oh gosh, it's 19 years I've been working in development for customs. And it was the first time that we really didn't get a lot of pushback from anybody. It's like almost no negativity. I think this is just the wave of the future. I think it's going to have a profound effect on what we're doing, and it was a great lead in for what's coming in 2024.
And how does this interplay with ACE? Because really, we're talking about a lot of the ways that the different projects you're doing plug into ACE. What's the interplay there?
So right now, remember I said earlier, we're looking at the pre-arrival data, right? How do we get that data that we don't normally see through standard means? And then we apply it to the data that we've already been getting from our traditional members through a broker. And again, irony of ironies, the brokers that are playing in the sandbox with us are saying this is fantastic. We're seeing things that we haven't seen before. We're getting that data in. We don't have to go all over the place to find it now. It's all coming to us. So what we're doing is for the pipeline and the steel pieces, as we're going through the supply chain and we're hitting all the different actors, eventually the broker will come in and assign an entry number. So, or maybe there's a bill number for the carrier. And the data, when it's supplied to us, is then hyperlinked into our system in the ACE system so that it joins the two and the operators have access to them. And the fact that they're getting this data now earlier means that we can respond earlier, and that's ultimately what we're going for. We want to be able to give benefits to the trade participants to let them know earlier in the process. And this will probably come more into being with the 2024 tests that we're doing, but be able to let them go earlier because we're good to go. We figured out what we needed to figure out, and you can have some assurance that when it hits the U.S. shores, that you're able, or U.S. writ large, you will be able to move your product through without us delaying it.
So that project really underpins a lot of the concerns around security as well. So I think my last question before I ask you, if you have any parting words, because we could literally talk to you all day. This is fascinating, and I think people don't understand how much goes into that product coming into the US and how much kind of back work is done ahead of time, and that this type of project certainly helps track things for security and homeland security purposes, as well as fraud and counterfeit and all the other things that you all are fighting. So I guess my last formal question will be, how does the project help security and information exchange? And then if you have any parting words before Thanksgiving this year, just feel free.
Well, it strings together the supply chain, and it also makes the world a little bit smaller. When you can get all of the suppliers of information or data, online and supplying that in a way that we can see what's transacting from beginning to end, it's irreplaceable. And the data that we're getting is at a discrete level. Now, before I was mentioning GS1, I don't know if I mentioned them actually. If I haven't mentioned them, we're working with standards groups like GS1 and Glyph, who are responsible for giving us standard ways of understanding who a company is, where they're located, or even a product. So we're getting much more discrete data, and we're getting those third-party attestations. So your security comes up because, again, if it's more difficult for somebody to jump through these hoops to legitimize themselves, the more of those hoops there are, the less the bad guys are going to try and go through them. They're going to try and find the easiest way in. It's not foolproof by any means. It's not like we're getting rid of anybody's jobs, but we're giving the operators tools to make quicker decisions. We haven't even really talked about artificial intelligence and what that would do, because the data is much stronger and more powerful with AI. We haven't talked about smart devices, being able to plug all that in. And then, of course, ultimately, the fact that somebody cannot replicate another company and come in and take something that somebody else owns and mimic that is phenomenal. In fact, there's even ways at times where people will use things like they get an ID number from something and they use it on the importation, and it shows it's legitimate because they have this ID number, but it doesn't have anything to do with the product that they're bringing in, right? You can't do that in this world because everything that you have is applied to the actual user of the goods, or the user or that company, and nobody can just come in and steal that. So it's a tremendous step up, Christina. I've been around a long time. I hate to admit that, but I think that this, quite honestly, can change the next 20 to 30 years of the way we do business and really increase security and facilitation at the same time in one felt swoop. So it's exciting to be here, really at the fringes of all this taking place, and setting those baselines in for the next generation. And I just think it's wonderful.
Well, it's great to hear, because that pretty much combines everything people are looking for. They're looking for more efficiency and more security, and that's exactly what you're delivering. So congratulations on this project. We're so happy you took some time to talk with us. I know it's Thanksgiving week, so I want to really extend gratitude for you and all of your work and your team. We know CBP is working on behalf of the American people every day and trying very, very hard to make sure that we don't see another 9/11 again, but there's a lot of everyday activity that happens to make sure that our country is safe and secure. So thank you for your role in that. We really, really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Christina, and happy Thanksgiving.
To you too.
Hey, Christina, can I ask one question? This is Jessica
Yes.
Turner.
Yeah.
As far as recording, is this going to be online, and when do you plan
Yes.
on publishing?
I don't want him to get lost in Thanksgiving, but we are talking about Thanksgiving, so we'll probably post it tomorrow.
Okay.
All we're gonna do is add his name signature underneath, and then we'll be probably posting later this afternoon, and then I'll post it on LinkedIn and tag whoever you want me to tag.
Okay. Can you email me the link,
Oh, absolutely.
please? I
Yeah.
appreciate it. All right. Thank you. It's so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys. Let me know if you need anything. Thank you, Mr. Annunziato.
Oh, call me Vinny, please.
Okay, Vinny. Thank
right,
you
Christina.
very much to everyone. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Take care.